What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, and being part of that movement, we've reached out directly and indirectly to over 500,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And welcome to the first Monday in March 2026. Yes, it is here. And I say this a little bit too much, and I'll probably stop saying it in a few days, but so many people said to me, where did February go? It's just like, bang, it's gone. And on top, it's the shortest month of the year. And on top, it was Black History Month. So all those things, I guess, made it a fast and furious last month. But we are fine. And you are watching The Morning Vibe with myself and my co-host, Ryan Knight, who will not be with us today, but he'll be here in spirit. So what has been going on in everyone's world these days? I hope that everyone is enjoying life, doing the best that they can with what they got, and just hanging out. And here in the Greater Toronto area, it's like minus 11 degrees Celsius this morning. So winter is still here, only getting up to a high of minus 4 Celsius today. So it's still rather chilly. They say eventually spring's going to be here. We'll see when that's true. We'll see when that's true. Hope everyone had a good weekend. Myself, I did a show last night about a wonderful young man who's a great entrepreneur who does clothing based on Afrocentric and African heritage, things like Kemet and Kush, all those things. So you may want to check out that last conversation. Go to the Dr. Vibe channel, especially on YouTube. And then on Saturday, late afternoon, early evening, we did another episode of Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lola, and they really had a lot of things to check out about and talk about, and they were on fire. And look who's in the house already. Fitness IQ Cam says, morning. Good morning, Fitness IQ Cam. You know, I have to say that you are probably the most regular viewer of the Morning Vibe Live. I'm probably saying that. You probably are the most regular viewer of the Morning Vibe Live. So good to have you here as always. What else is going on in people's worlds? We're going to be talking about an interesting subject in a few moments. I'm not going to get too much into it because we'll have Donovan Martin from the Daily Scrum News chatting about it. What else? What people are chiming in here this morning? What's else? It goes, Fitness IQ Cam gives the blessings or praying emoji. Good to have you here. What else? Actually, I'm always doing research to see how I can improve what I'm doing when it comes to creating content. And I was doing some research, and I see now, for those people who broadcast on YouTube, there's always an interesting part, should you answer to your comments or not? And that's always a little interesting subject. Well, now you can, if you are a YouTube content creator, you can reply to your comments via voice message. Yes, you can reply via voice message, and it allows you to do it for 15 seconds. So what do you think about that? If you're a content creator, recording with a voice message to people who leave you comments. Yes, so Fitness IQ Cam says, even with a migraine, yes, you are here. And she goes, oh, really? Yeah, it's a new feature just launched. Found out over the weekend that you can do that. Reply via voice message. So I don't know. Is it something you want to do? Is it something you want to do? And also, too, we were into she goes, as long as it's not a troll. Yes, I agree. As long as it's not a troll. But you see, trolls can be good and bad. The bad part is they come in with a lot of times nonsense. But the good thing is when they attend, they increase your viewer count. Think about it that way. So I don't know if they realize that. So if you take it in the right mindset, they can be beneficial. What else? I had something else I wanted to chat about, and it's and I shared this last night, but I got a call yesterday from someone who I've known for about 25 years, and we chat off and on, off and on. And we had a wonderful 3-hour conversation. We just went, we were both big lovers of music. So we talked about different music groups. We talked about past, present stuff going on. And I'll just say that the person may be interested in getting involved with the Morning Vibe in the future. Not going to say anything more than that, but there's an opportunity for that to happen. So I'm looking forward to it. See what that person has to say. But that was, yeah, I think that was, is there everything else I wanted to mention? Oh, what did everyone do for their Black History Month? Did you, what are your thoughts on Black History Month 2026? Good, bad, Did you have a chance to get out and enjoy or celebrate it? Whether you even get out just in your own way, did you celebrate Black History Month? Would be very interested to know what you did for Black. And you know what? Black History Month, Black history is 365. Black history is every day. And for those who have Black, Caribbean, or African heritage, Black history starts with you. And also there's a lot of Black history in your own family. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying about that. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Not just saying, just saying. What else? We got some great conversation coming up today. Excuse me. We have 2 conversations coming up on Friday. We have something on the Morning Vibe, and then we also have something at 7 p.m. on Friday, which you'll find out about in a few moments. I don't know if there's anything else we need to deal with. I know there are a number of people watching. Please feel free to chime in. And it seems that a lot of, actually, I just want to ask everyone, how are you enjoying being able to watch this on your phone live and have it sized properly? Would love to get feedback on that, because certainly we are seeing the number of people watching our live conversations via, horizontal, laptop, desktop, like they call that the 16:9 ratio, but also watching it 9:16. Would love to get feedback on that. But most importantly, we're happy you're here. All right, we're going to go to break. So when we come back from break, we got some housekeeping to do. And then we're going to tell you about some upcoming shows, and we're going to have Donovan Ralph. Well, we're actually going to show a little bit of an intro video about what we're going to be chatting about on today's show. Then we're going to bring Donovan Ralph Martin Sr. from the Daily Scrum News to give his take on it. All right, so first things first, let's go for a break. Let's go now.
Check out Primetime Saturdays with Aisha and Lala.
We're live every Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
With Aisha K. Staggers
and Laura Lala Key.
Where we try to make sense of the nonsense
going on in American politics and culture.
You don't want to miss it.
We'll see you on Saturday. Watch Black Canada Talking live on Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern, where Dr. Vibe and Cesar de Mamusa give their takes and POVs on news stories from a Black Canadian perspective.
Make sure you check out the weekends. Cesar de Mamusa, Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, hanging out with him on Black Canada Talking. And then 5 p.m. on Saturdays, Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala, who try to make sense of the nonsense going on in American politics and culture. All right, let's see what else we got going on. Fitness IQ Cam says, I see yours works perfectly. I probably have to adjust my camera somehow. All right, well, you can reach out and I can give you some suggestions on that. Okay, let's do some housekeeping. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. I think I haven't taken a look lately, but the subscribers are going up. It's going up. Thank you. Now, if you have subscribed, thank you. If you haven't, what's keeping you? What's keeping you? And also, if you subscribe, we at least want you to watch either live or on replay or provide comments. Engagement is so important to content creators. Excuse me. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Substack. Join the Morning Vibe Discord group. Email me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com or hit the link there. Also, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms I'm on, please feel free to email me, DR period VIBE at the DR VIBESHOW.com. Also, do not forget our dear friend Dr. Tachi, based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She is the driving force behind Indie Soup Media. What's Indie Soup Media? It's an independent content creators platform on YouTube. It's been around for 2.5 years. It has over 28,000 subscribers. And I'm one of the independent content creators. Thank you very much. Also, I'm a member of the advisory board. So please check it out. And with over 28,000 subscribers, Indie Soup Media is in the top 4% of all YouTube channels in regards to subscribers. So there's the information there. Also, too, help shape the morning vibe. Take our 2-minute audience survey. Your voice matters. So click on the following link, and I'll be sharing that information in the comment sections on most of the platforms you're watching this live on the replay. So I was telling you some upcoming stuff. Coming up on this Friday's show at 9 a.m. Eastern, Perry Douglas will be talking about his recent article at byblacks.com, Black History Month, the illusion of inclusion. The illusion of inclusion. So do not miss that. Perry's on, periodically if you're a regular here, and Perry always throws it down. So do not miss that. That's another reason why you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I'll probably be between now and the end of day tomorrow. I'll be posting that, and you'll have your notification ready to go. Also, on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, financial educator Wayne Harris will be talking about Spring into Your Finances 2026, smart money tips. And Wayne is always on point when it comes to education, financial education. All right. So that's the stuff come up. We got some comments here. Okay, I'm going to do this and this. Okay. So Fitness IQ Camp says, oh, no Financial First Friday. Yes, but it's at 7 p.m., not 9 a.m. Yes, 7 p.m. show. And also Dr. Tachi is in the house saying good morning, all. Good morning, Dr. Tachi. And thank you again for making time to join the conversation this past Saturday. Appreciate it, and it's not taken for granted. So as I mentioned, we're going to have Donovan Martin Sr. of the Daily Scrum coming up. But before we have him come up, we're going to do a little bit of a video about what we're going to be chatting about, or what he's going to be chatting about with you today. So here we go.
A seismic shift in the Middle East. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is dead, killed in a joint U.S.-Israel airstrike operation launched late last week. President Trump confirmed it personally, calling Khamenei one of the most malevolent individuals in history and stating major combat operations are underway. Israeli strikes hit his Tehran compound, Revolutionary Guard centers, missile sites, and dozens of top regime leaders, over 48 reported killed. Iranian state media verified the death, announcing 40 days of mourning amid reports of damaged command structures. Public reaction in Tehran mixes grief from hardliners with quiet celebration from those oppressed for decades. Iran retaliated with missile and drone barrages on Israel and U.S. bases, killing at least 3 American troops and wounding others as the war widens. Oil markets are spiking, global powers watching closely, Russia and China silent so far. Trump and Netanyahu framed this as Iran's chance for regime change, urging the people to rise up. But with a power vacuum, hardliners and guard factions are maneuvering for control. This could end the Islamic Republic or ignite region-wide chaos. Stay tuned as we track developments. What do you think, opportunity or catastrophe?
All right, what is up? So we are going to be hanging out for a little while. It's time he has for us with Donovan. I'm going to bring him up right now. He is ready. He is ready. All right, there he is. There he is. We got you. We got you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you, Dr. Vibe and team?
Outstanding. How are you doing this morning?
You know what? This is, in a lack of a better words, this is kind of like the Super Bowl for journalists, right? Like, I know it's a terrible analogy. It's just terrible, but that's the level of news that's breaking out. And for us, because we are part of all these news networks, so the information we're getting right now has not even hit the American news wire yet. So there's so many things going on. Unbelievable.
You know what? You said the word unbelievable. I don't use that word anymore. I stopped using that word after 9/11.
Yeah.
I just say it's believable. I expect anything. It's how we accept it or handle it. So let's get right into our conversation today. What did the US and Israel hit in Iran, and how did we get to this point?
Well, what the US did was unbelievably, there's that word again, started off the first day they killed the Ayatollah Khomeini and decapitated many of the senior leaderships and military uh, people there. So, to put this into perspective, it is like saying, imagine if somebody assassinated the Pope and the president all in the same day. That's the significance of it because the Iran Ayatollah is the second highest Ayatollah in the world next to the Grand Ayatollah in Iraq. So, responsible for leading hundreds of millions of people. And right now, you are seeing the American president, and I have to say, utter disappointment in our Canadian president and foreign affairs minister. And then you could throw in Germany, the UK, and France is telling Iran to not retaliate and should lay down arms because it's for the good of the people. Now, I have no skin in the game. We have no skin in the game. But as we say, can you imagine a military strike that kills the US president by a foreign adversary and tell them, and then they tell the US not to strike back or retaliate? This is the level of absurdity we are at right now.
The second part of my conversation piece on that, how did we get here?
Well, it's there's a lot of theories, but let's look at the factual one. Is Israel controls what the U.S. does. There's no secret. The AIPAC controls the American Congress, all three levels of government. The lobbying, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, pretty much every elected officials has taken money from AIPAC. AIPAC is significant in how U.S. policies are made, to the point that in almost all 50 states, there are laws that you will be jailed, lengthy jail time, if you criticize Israel, if you stop procurement from Israel. It's absurd. The level of absurdity where the US has gotten right now. So Israel has what's called the Greater Israel, where they want to essentially see Israel ruling Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and Kuwait as part of the Greater Israel. We've seen what's the destruction of happened in Gaza. We see that in the West Bank. And there's really, if you think of it, they are just a tiny little nation with a few million people, but yet they are essentially the bully on the block to all of the Gulf states with cumulatively surpass over 100 million people. Iran alone is, I believe, 30, 40 million people, which is probably 5, if not 10 times the size of Israel. But they're also the only nuclear power in the region. And they've been heavily protected by US warships and US military might, and all of, not just US military might, you throw in Canada, you throw in all the Arab states. Now, when the airstrike took place over a few days ago that essentially decapitated its leader. This was the red line that was unimaginable from crossing, which was crossed by Trump and Israel. Now, while Trump was negotiating, his team, which is his son in law, and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, was negotiating under false pretense. They did this the first time when they struck Iran, and then they did this again. The only difference this time is when they struck Iran, Iran did not wait days to retaliate, and they did not tell the American government, we are going to strike this base, so evacuate it so we could save face. What they did was they struck, I believe right now, up to 14 US bases in the Gulf. They struck all of them. And what we are seeing right now is the other nations who quote, well, we have nothing to do with this war. Why are you striking us? Why are they striking the United Arab Emirates? Why are they striking Dubai? And that's the narrative. We have nothing to do with this. Well, that is 100% false. So in both cases, the United Arab Emirates may not per se have a U.S. base of soldiers, but they actually do house U.S. radar facilities that guide and prevent and provide significant military strategic information to U.S. and CENTCOM. Then you have Dubai, which is how we are 100% neutral. We told the Americans you cannot use our airspace, which is true, but what the part of the rhetoric is missing is that the head of the CIA Middle East operation is out of Dubai. Dubai is a hub for spies smuggling into Iraq and other parts of the Middle East. And then, of course, Dubai's financial system is very corrupt. So these are the underlining factors you are not being told in the media, which we covered very well today in my feature piece. And then on top of that, Saudi Arabia, which has always been the arch nemesis of Iran up until last year, or the year before, where they signed a truce where they exchanged ambassadors. But from our sources, the king or future king had a deliberate hand in nudging the US to attack Iran. So where we sit right now is all of the Gulf states who support United States or house them in some facility, whether it be troops, whether it be electronic warfares or logistics, have been strategically hit. And that's important because that says if you are housing or if you are taking part in any form of measures that could hurt us, we are going to hurt you. As a result, right now, you have Saudi Arabia's Aramco fields on fire. The oil and gas fields are on fire in Saudi Arabia, the largest in the Gulf. You have the UAE on fire. You have multiple Gulf state oil facilities are on fire. You have the state of Hormuz that is closed, only letting through Russian and Chinese ships in. So it's an absolutely hot mess. And to further complicate that is all of the US military, you are seeing them fleeing the US bases and leaving hardware. And those Gulf states who've been harboring them for years are now saying, what are you doing? You are supposed to protect us. And the US government says, no, we are not here to protect you. We are here to use your bases as a staging area to do what we need. And ideally, it's to protect Israel. So it's a mess right now.
Well, Dr. Tachi says this is extremely multi-layered.
It is. She's 100% right, because you got to remember, there's been occupation forever in the Middle East. As I'm saying this right now, Israel is attacking Syria. Israel is attacking Lebanon. They're set to do a ground invasion in Lebanon. They're completely carpet bombing Iran. They have destroyed whatever little left of a buildings in Gaza, the West Bank. It's nonstop. So this is the first time where America is actually feeling the might of a real army. And to put this into perspective, you have Iran has what, $5,000 drones to $25,000 drones which are causing havoc, and they're being shot down by a U.S. Patriot and THAAD missiles that start at $1 million to $10 million per missile.
Okay.
So this is a war that, once it's all said and done, America is going to suffer its most casualties. This will be catastrophic for America right now, because there are coffins and coffins and coffins lined with the American flags that you're being told by America, CENTCOM, there's only been 3 casualties and around, I think they said, reported 7 injuries. That is 100% unequivocally false.
Okay. What do you base your facts on?
Well, I'm basing my facts on, because we have our colleagues are actually on the ground in Iran, in Israel, and we're part of a larger network where we are seeing things a day before. We're seeing videos, and again, we saw the videos that were being posted before through our journalist network about the US F-15s being shot down over Kuwait, which was all denied by CENTCOM. Now it's irrefutable. There's been 4 US F-15 jets that have been shot down, which is now confirmed by the Pentagon. We've been told that there has been no direct hits on the US destroyers by the Pentagon and CENTCOM. Videos we've seen and now are being posted, there has been a direct hit where on a US destroyer that appears to be destroyed. 4 ballistic missiles were shot at the US Abraham Lincoln. And we are seeing and told there was a direct hit. CENTCOM is refuting that. So I'm pretty confident to say that when it's all said and done, 1 or if not 2, both of the US Navy carriers will be sunk or suffer significant damage.
Wow. Okay, so just doing a reset here. We're here with Donovan Martin Sr., the Daily Scrum News. We're talking about U.S. and Israel attack Iran, Supreme Leader dead, and the continuing news that's breaking from that area of the world. Dr. Tachi says it makes sense they would misconstrue the numbers of casualties because they lie about everything else. Why would this be different?
So Dr. Tachi is 100% correct. So here's how I put this into perspective. This is why it's not adding up. There's over 40,000 personnel stationed in the multiple bases in the Gulf regions. All of those bases were hit. Many of them, the U.S., they did not believe they were going to be struck. If you see the videos of bases blowing up completely in smithereens, and to say that multiple hits upon hits and completely wiped out, that there's been only 3 casualties, it's not factual. There are coffins right now where from the numbers we have, there's on different news sources, the casualties are a minimum of 200 and up to 1,000. So I'm very confident when I could say this is when the real numbers start to come out, all hell is going to break loose figuratively throughout the US Congress. And I'm even more confident to say I don't believe Trump will survive this impeachment.
That's pretty. Well, we'll parking lot that and come back to that.
Yeah.
JG Mar says just joined. There's definitely a media blockout ordered by the Pentagon.
Yeah, it is. It's catastrophic. Again, the stuff we see first, because the Middle East, they're a day ahead of us. So the stuff we're seeing has not even hit the American or North American newswire yet. So when this news does hit, it's going to hit hard. And you will see lots of videos of American Hercules planes draped with coffins with the US flags. That's
Okay.
a fact.
Okay. And especially if you're watching live, but even if you're watching on the replay, question for you, and I've put it in the comments section on many of the platforms. From where you live, what's one thing about the U.S., Israel, Iran situation that worries you most right now? What's one thing that worries you most right now? So love to get the audience in on that. And we get back up to here. Just give me a second. We're here, and then we have, and Dr. Tachi has even more reason not to trust mainstream American media. It's been tainted and tampered with.
It's again, she's bang on. When you can, and it's just as bad as in Canada too, because if you think of it, the media is owned, the majority of the media is owned by the same group of people, and they're all very right wing. They're all tied into the same PAC that's donating money to the US government. And let's call a spade, just facts. The majority of the heads of all the American media company have direct ties or descendants from the country, the state of Israel. So that's why you see a lot of the news that are very shifted and slanted. And for years, it's been a faux pas to call out what's going on there because people are afraid of being called anti-Semitic or not being reelected. And we've been doing it for bringing the atrocities happening in the region to people for years. It's about news is news and facts are facts. But this will be probably one of the worst casualties when it's said and done suffered by American soldiers. The fact that we are only 3.5 days into this war, and it's already cost the US almost $600 million already.
Okay. Some more comments here. Someone saying follow independent news for facts and truth. And one of the Dr. Vibe show family, JJ Mars, good to see you as always, saying the political economic fallout and ramifications will lead to another recession. We will get to that before we finish up today. I want to do something challenging. I want to go inside 47's head. So let me ask, how much of this is about stopping nukes and missiles, and how much of it is about regime change in Iran?
Factual, zero of it actually, zero. So let's break down the nuclear, then the regime change, and then the two wild cards, which we'll touch on. So first of all, for the last 5 decades, we've been told Iran is a month away from a nuclear weapon. And that's been going on for the last 5 decades, and they still have yet to produce one. Under the Obama administration, there was a deal struck that would limit Iran's nuclear enrichment to a small, minute amount and consistent level of weapons inspectors, and they adhered to that. Now, when Trump came in, he ripped that deal up, completely ripped it up, and said this was dumb. Obama didn't know what he was doing. In last year, they bombed Iran's nuclear facility and told everybody that they had completely obliterated its nuclear facility. So if you have a country that never had one and then it was completely obliterated, then how can you justify going to war saying you want to prevent them from having a nuclear facility? So either you're lying or you knew they didn't have them. So that's the first argument Trump's made. Then the next argument they were making was Iran has the potential of striking America with an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, the Pentagon already refuted that. That's not possible. They're nowhere near that level of sophistication for long range. In addition to that, an ICBM fired from Iran to America would never make it to US soil. There are too much strategic deterrence already placed out. So missiles everywhere. You have NORAD. You have the Five Eyes. You have Alaska filled with anti-ICBM. So it will a missile will never ever make it into US airspace. So that's all a fallacy. Then you talk about regime change. This is the same thing when Israel was bombing Gaza, saying we need to do regime change and get Hezbollah out. And then they after admitted, well, Hezbollah is an ideology. We cannot regime change. It's like saying we're going to bomb every Christian person to change. So it was never going to happen. So this actually leaves us to one thing. The real reason why the US is bombing Iran. Well, there's two reasons. Number one, Israel tells them to do it. And I strongly believe there is some truth to the Epstein stuff. But the real wild card reason they're bombing bombing Iran is the biggest deterrent to China. And that's what people are not saying out loud, because America sees its biggest fear as China. And how do you do that? Is you go after the two biggest sources of energy. The first one is Venezuela, which China gets the vast majority of its energy from Venezuela. So you capture Maduro, you shut that down. China invested billions into the Venezuelan oil refinery. The second one is you cut off all the choke points of oil coming from Iran, which China is the largest importer of oil from Iran in pretty much all the nations. So I believe it's 10 billion barrels a day of oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, goes directly to China. Now, where Trump drastically miscalculated this effort, and where the Chinese are literally, I think, they think in decades ahead of something like this would happen. So China has struck multiple deals with Russia. So oil is going directly to China from Russia. You have pipelines that are built from Russia through the mountains, all throughout the various regions that link back to China. And what China did and completed last year was they built the longest railway corridor directly from Iran to China. So their crude also travels from the Strait of Hormuz, or simultaneously crude travels railway. So anticipating that, knowing that if the Strait of Hormuz gets blocked, we still have enough shipment of oil coming through rail. And right now, only Chinese and Russian ships are allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. The significance of that is huge because it's 20 to 40% of the global oil passes through that strait that goes to the Europeans and all the other nations. That shutdown now is drastically going to affect the factories. Factories are going to be shutting down. You're going to see oil prices getting sky, gas prices, food. So it's going to collapse. In the first 3 days, there was $5 trillion was wiped out in wealth. As of opening bell on Monday, it was almost at another 3 trillion. It's almost $8 trillion wiped out over the weekend. And the people that's hurting the most is American investors. And you and I know when you start messing with their money, they are going to do everything they can to make sure there's a regime change in the US.
Excellent. Dr. Tachi says, Dr. Vibe, let me help you. His head is vacant. Oh my. Dr. Tachi, oh my. And also, if you want to get a hold of Donovan, go to the website, dailyscrumnews.com, and also email address info@dailyscrumnews.com. So we're hanging out, chatting about this. My next conversation piece with you, we're going to stay with 47. 47 says this is about, quote, protecting Americans, unquote, and giving Iranians a chance to reclaim their country. How are you reading that strategy?
It's all a fallacy. If you look at the declassified memo that came out today from the US senators that said Iran posed no real threat to the American people. So that's coming directly from the Pentagon, where they essentially saying Trump acted unilaterally, which he did because you need Congress to authorize war. And again, from the logistic standpoint, there are oceans and thousands of miles apart. So that argument is dead. When you talk about regime change, is what you don't see in Western media is the millions and millions of people on the streets of Iran in mourning, chanting for retaliation. Like, you don't see that. And the problem with Western civilization is they do not understand that not every nation is a democratic nation, right? And the best analogy I could put this is, you are saying you're coming in to liberate the people, to impose a Western style democracy, but they don't want a Western style democracy. It's the equivalent of saying, let's change all of Americans' type of ideology to govern it in the way of a Muslim country, right? So America tries to impose that on its people, on the people of Iran. Now, to say that there is no room to update some of the policies that are archaic and suppressive, absolutely, there's room for that. But to blanket saying all the people are oppressed and want a regime change, that's a fallacy, because if you're growing up in Iran, you're growing up as, I would say, the vast majority as Muslim, and you're essentially saying these people no longer want to be Muslims. So these are the nuances and the fallacies that the media feeds with the false narrative, and that's a problem.
If I have your permission, Trump, I need you to move to your right. There, that's better, because in vertical streaming, you were being cut off. So that's
Okay.
perfect. There we go. All right. Thank you very much, Mom. Our producer said Donovan's being cut off. So that's better. All right. So we can like, if you're there, yeah, vertical streaming, we want to make sure you show up. So yeah, that's good. All right. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. I also want to ask, what does this mean for Israel on the ground, especially with rockets from Hezbollah and other Iranian-backed groups?
Well, here's the thing: is Israel's military has been depleted for years. If the U.S. did not provide cover in a straight-up war with Iran, this war would be over within a day. Those are just facts. Because of the sheer size of Iran, Israel cannot invade Iran on a ground troop because of the distance. So their main thing is they have jets, and which we see they're falling out of the sky, and they have the unlimited cover of the U.S. military. Now that's about to change, because that's changing right now. The American people are waking up, and you see today, actually last night, which is probably going to make it to the Western news, Iran struck a facility in Israel, a manufacturing facility, military, estimated value $600 billion of weaponry. So they're hurting for weapons right now, because they have three levels of deterrence. You hear a lot about the Iron Dome, right? So the Iron Dome consists of three levels. There's David's Sling, there is the Arrow, and another name, which essentially there's three levels it protects. So if a certain type of missile reaches a trajectory of a certain height, one level will interact it, then another level, right? But the problem is all of those batteries are being depleted, right? And each one of those missiles costs up to $1 million, and they can only be made in the US. And I believe the company that produces them, it was a number of, they could only produce maybe 200 to 300 per year. So, and of course, America needs those for themselves, right? So they're bleeding missiles at an alarming rate. That's why you're seeing so many Iranian missiles have direct hit, because from the number we were told, Iran has over a minimum of 100,000 drones. And their drones are anywhere starting around $5,000 and up, right? So, for example, when a drone was fired at one of the U.S. destroyers, that $5,000 drone took, I think it was around maybe 10 missiles to shoot it down, because redundancy. So you look at a $5,000 drone, 10 missiles times $1 million. It's not a war that is sustainable for America. And couple that is, you also look at the Gerald Ford, which has now been at sea for almost a full year, which is unheard of for a carrier. You've heard of the issues that already plague that ship right now, with the sanitary issues and no proper facilities. It's not good. Morale is done, and this is a war America will definitely inflict a lot of damage, but when it's said and done, will not win this war.
Okay. JJ Marr says, I think this is another proxy war Israel has manipulated the U.S. into. Also, this gives 47 another opportunity to remove the focus away from his Epstein case. And Dr. Chachi says, I also blamed the military for enacting unlawful orders.
Both are 100% correct. And the problem right now with the US is the Democrats and Republicans, they're so polarized that they're unwilling to do right. You know, when you look at decades ago, perfect example, let's say a Senate confirmation. Or never mind that, let's go back to impeachment, where the last president prior to Trump to be impeached was Nixon, and both parties decided we're going to impeach him. In today's day and age, that will never happen. You know, Trump will be impeached, but he will. I'm confident this time the writing would be on the wall, where you will have Republicans say, you know what, we can't do this. He needs to go. Because this is an election year, a midterms. And I do believe that if the damage is as catastrophic as is being reported to us, I will it will be it would be hard pressed to think that the Democrats will not speed up a hasty impeachment, and they'll be able to peel off just enough Republicans to go along with it, because they only need, I think, 4 to switch, and I believe they have that.
Let me, well, how much time do you have with us today?
I'm good for time today.
Oh, good, because I want to go deep into this, and I appreciate you making the time to hang out with us. So let me ask, let me go for this. What are you watching in places like Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, and the oil markets right now?
They're taking a hit because the biggest thing is the Strait of Hormuz, right? There's another strait where you could go through the Red Sea up to Europe, but the Houthis control the Red Sea. And so it's a terrible time right now for the Gulf state. And this is, let's be honest, I call a spade a spade. This is punishment for all those years of, being complicit in what the U.S. has done. One of the worst is Jordan. Jordan and Egypt claims to be neutral, but they've been instrumental in firing and shooting down missiles whenever they are targeted at Israel. Again, not a fan of war for anybody, but these are facts, right? And this is why the Jordan and bases that house U.S. military was hit. This is why Bahrain was hit. This is why Saudi Arabia was hit. Qatar, all those oil-producing nations.
So J.J. Marr says Clinton was impeached, but it didn't really impact him politically.
Correct. It's a good point. I missed that one.
All right. So let me ask, from your vantage point, did this operation cross any lines of international law, or is it being justified as, quote, self-defense, unquote?
Well, as I've written about so much time, international law does not apply to the U.S. and Israel, full stop. Everybody else it applies to. If you're a smaller African nation, it applies to you. International Criminal Court, it applies to you. It does not apply to the U.S. or Israel. And the perfect example of that is when the ICC put out arrest warrants for Putin, the U.S. says every country that he travels to, they should arrest him. When they put out arrest warrant for Netanyahu and his defense minister Gallant, then the U.S. says no countries should enforce them because it's not international law. So international law only suits the U.S. when they want it to suit them. There's been so many red lines crossed. It's ridiculous. You see today, and yes, over the weekend, our prime minister go on the news and saying they support the U.S. These are quotes that Iran needs to stop its aggression and lay down arms. This is the same thing you're hearing from Germany, you're hearing from the Ukraine, you're hearing from France. You're not hearing anything about the first strike hit a school and killed 140 kids. Not one mention of that. All you're hearing is Iran needs to stop bombing Israel and stop bombing its neighbors. So there's such a huge disparities. Whereas if it's very lopsided. You have the people. It's very colonial type of thinking.
What questions do you feel journalists and citizens should be asking now that the mainstream outlets are not?
Well, it's hard to ask any questions because the main street outlets or to your elected officials, because they're unwilling to be truthful. So with exceptional a handful of countries, so if you look at the Nordic countries such as Sweden and Switzerland and Norway and Ireland, they've been adamant that what's going on is beyond genocide, beyond atrocities. And same with Spain, they've been on that, right? Whereas if you look at the rhetoric or coming out of those nations, not even rhetoric, they're factual. Look, we cannot say to Iran, stop what you're doing and lay down arms when you were negotiating in good faith and the US and Israel decided to bomb you. This is the second time they've done that. We cannot say that when we have school blown up, when you killed the religious leader, you've killed the head of state. So they're being truthful, right? They're calling a spade, where I have to say, disappointment in our leaders are saying, Iran started the bombing. This is what is being led in the news. Iran started the bombing and now we have to finish it. And that's what the leaders are saying. And and you wonder why people hate politicians and hate the media, because there's no spine. It's just, they say dumb stuff because they're only protecting their interest. And for the tiny iota of symbolism the Canadian Prime Minister showed with his Davos speech, that all went up to flames over the weekend when he said he supported what US is doing and that Iran should have essentially not started this war. Like, what are we doing here?
Dr. Tachi says, also notice the nationality of these people who are calling for one side to back down, mostly Western Europeans. This is why the US constantly gets away with things.
Yep, colonialism mentality, as I said. Yeah, it definitely is. So the real question now is, will the Gulf states wake up and say, you know what, we no longer want the US bases on our territory? Because when push comes to shove, you are not staying to defend us. You are leaving. All of those bases that have been attacked now have been evacuated. Right? There are no US soldiers there hunkering down to protect the Gulf states. And for the basic honorarium they're being paid to use their base, they don't need it. So there's over 850 US bases around the globe. So if there was ever a wake-up call moment for those bases to say, those countries to say, you know what, maybe we should rethink of having a US base in our country, because if if we're seeing what's happening right now in real time, then having a US base on our soil is more of a detriment to not only our people, but to our way of life.
So let me put this on a different public here. For Black viewers in Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, and Africa, why should they care about this conflict?
Well, they should care, because if we look at the next adamant regime change the US has said is going to happen is Cuba. Right? They're very adamant about that. And Marco Rubio, he is, let's not get it twisted, he is a monster. He's an absolute monster. And him having roots in Cuba and issues with Venezuela, which goes back to years when he was a younger person. He has Cuba square in his crosshairs. So as members of the Black community, we should take this serious. Because if you think that's bad, you should see what's happening right now in Nigeria, right on the borders of Niger and Burkina Faso and Mali, where the Nigerian government has basically given carte blanche to the US military to occupy land to conduct security measures to help free Africa, which is, we are giving you carte blanche to do what you need to do to disrupt what's going on in Burkina Faso, in let's essentially, feed the people who are trying to assassinate Abraham Traore. There's so much going on right now that the US are doing. It's unbelievable. So the Black community should take notice, because it's not just about regime change. It's a colonial type of thinking. And again, you look at Marco Rubio, who is a minority, when he went to Europe over a week and a half ago, and basically said what happened with colonialism was good and it was needed, and we are taking it out of proportion, and paraphrasing. So that's the language coming out of the US government, that colonialism essentially was good for the people. And we all know how that ended. And
absolutely. Yeah. Some people say we're still living it, just in different forms today. This, another conversation piece here. How could this war touch everyday life? Gas prices, inflation, racism, security laws, even online speech.
Well, the biggest one that's going to hurt immediately is gas, right? If you think of it, is Saudi Arabia now have to deal with the oil fields burning. That's going to take months, if not a year, to fix. So they're not producing, and whatever they're producing, Iran will not let out of the Strait of Hormuz. So the Saudi Arabia oil facility is essentially shut down. The UAE facility is shut down. Essentially, all of the nations in the Gulf that took part or complicit in the attack on Iran through aiding America and Israel, they're essentially shut down. So the only oil producing country right now is Iran, Iraq, and any of the other smaller states who had no role to play. So you have that scarcity. So the irony is, Now, the only two major producing oil countries are Russia and Iran, right? Where they and America has made it adamant they are not buying Russian crude. And so here's what America and the European has made it clear they're not buying Russian crude. So they spend 10 times the amount of money to buy crude that's shipped in from the US. But here's what a lot of Europeans aren't aware of is so they're buying Russian crude in the back end. So Russia sells the crude to India, and then India sells it back to the European at a different price. It's a terrible cycle, but it's going to affect everybody immediately.
Okay. Dr. Tachi says we don't need the U.S. there. Absolute shame on Nigeria, but I'm not surprised. And she also says Rubio is the self-hating Latino.
Yeah. Rubio is. It's like if you pulled a mask off, you see nothing but pure evil. People need to really understand how evil this man is. He is no joke. He is the real deal level of evil. And I suspect when Trump leaves office, it's going to be an all-out knives out between him and JD Vance to see who becomes the head of the Republican ticket.
You're reading my alleged mind. I was going to bring that up, that some people will say that Rubio's trying to make his mark as a strong leader to get the advantage over JD Vance, because that's going to be a battle. You know, you have Rubio, strong military guy with, Venezuela. This also, because you're not hearing anything about JD Vance right now.
Yeah.
Not at all. But JD Vance has a lot of the Peter Thiel and those people on his side. But right now, Rubio is the front and center. If we're looking at the next presidential race on the Republican side, Rubio is trying to make his footprint and get on the good graces of 47.
I would not be surprised if behind the scenes JD Vance was orchestrating the votes to impeach Trump.
That's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, I would not be. Let's be honest. The guy hates Trump, but again, if you get to be vice president, you're going to say and do what you want, right? You have to remember all the divisive stuff that Trump said. Well, his wife's an immigrant from those countries, so but when you get a chance to gain real power, you're going to say and do what you want, because he's presuming he will be the head of the ticket. But there will be
JJ Marr says most Americans privately despise 47, but only support him because he makes them feel, quote, great again, unquote, with white nationalism.
Yep. 100% correct.
Let me ask, what parallels do you see between how this war is covered and how conflicts in Africa and the Caribbean are covered or ignored?
Wow. It's a good question. If you draw a parallel to them, is a war like this is covered as liberation. America is liberating the people, right? Israel is liberating the people. When Africa goes to war, it's not seen as liberation. It's always put as infighting or civil war, or they don't know how to run their country, and they need America to come in and step in, right? So it's never like that. And actually, again, the lens of how America, sorry, let's not just America, how Western media covers, let's talk about Africa, how Western media covers Africa and how the BBC covers China is atrocious. So the first thing they do is camera lens, is they change the lens to a very dark lens where everything looks dark and eerie, never bright. And when the Western covers Africa, the only images you see of Africa is only the poorest things you ever see. You see the dirt roads, you see the slums, you see the poorest things. And that is how, if you go back and look at any news of any parts of Africa, and you see the traditional lion person or in loincloth. And that is how Western news always covers Africa. So the next time you see it, take a look at that. You never see the cities, you never see the skyrise, you never see any of that. And one of the examples is if you were to go to Rwanda, you would think you're in you'd think you're in Wakanda. Rwanda is way beyond an advance in parts of the country than Canada and the US. You have actually sanctioned flying cars in Rwanda. The technology there are in 60s. If you stepped foot in Rwanda, you would think this is not Africa, right? Because these are the things the news doesn't show you. They make it looks like all of the African countries are still living in the 1910s and 20s. So the lens how the Western media covers Africa is absolutely terrible, especially when it comes time for when it's war or economic development or actual progress. You never see that. And I'll give you an analogy. A friend of mine is from Ghana, and we were talking, and saying she just came back, and someone asked her, did she see a lion? Right? And she's like, so she said, if I want to see a lion, I actually have to go to the zoo, right? And that person was like, oh, so yeah, they're not just roaming the streets. And if I want to go see more of them, a safari, I have to book a safari and I have to go a couple of hours away to actually see them. So by that analogy, should put into perspective how the media covers Africa and how people think and see these nations.
Okay. What signs will you look for that this is shifting from precision strikes to a full-scale war?
It is a full-scale war.
Oh, okay.
Because let's go back to the first time when US bombed Iran last year. Do you know when they bombed that Iran only struck military targets? There was no civilian infrastructure, there was no schools, there were no mosques, nothing. Israel strikes anything and everything, right? To think that school that was struck was an accident, no. Just look at what happened in Gaza, right? If you look what they did last night, they just carpet bombed a whole neighborhood, blew it all up, right? So with the decapitation of the Ayatollah Khomeini, from what we are seeing, Iran is still striking strategic military assets. But to say that will not change, it would be hard pressed to say that there comes a moment where they're now they will make Israel look like Gaza.
Dr. Tachi says, indeed, Donovan, I think many of them detest the occupant of the White House, but they love power more.
Yeah, drunken in power, absolutely.
So given the best case, worst case scenarios, okay, let me say this again. Give us the best case, worst case scenarios and the most likely scenarios over the next 30 to 60 days?
Most likely scenario is Israel will suffer its most catastrophic destruction ever. It's already happening. There'll be no more talks about Israel trying to settle in the West Bank. I would anticipate half of the population of Israel will leave. They are, I think it's over something like 10,000 companies have already filed for bankruptcy there. So after this war in 30 days, there'll be no one would want to live and invest in Israel. Israel will be a wasteland. It's just a fact. Iran will suffer catastrophic destruction in its country on Israel's way out. I would not, and I'm very serious when I say this, I would not rule out Israel dropping a nuclear bomb on Iran. If I was a betting man, I would say the odds of them doing that, and I'm very serious, I would put that in the 90 percentile that they would use a nuclear weapon on Iran. That's how serious I think the destruction is. I believe that for the first time, a U.S. naval carrier will be struck or sunk. I believe a B-2 bomber will be hit, a stealth bomb. I really believe that.
Earlier on, and I wanted to say this question as we were starting to wind down, we have a viewer saying, what's the lasting international effect of the conflict?
There are several. The first one will be the price of everything will go up because we are limited where we could get our oil now. And if you think of it, is the crude Canada produces out of the oil sands, those are refined in the US. And it's a special refinery that refines the Canadian oil sands, right? They can't just be refined anywhere. So if you have the two largest oil producing nations with facilities, and they're also the two nations that the US and Europe have vowed to not buy oil from. So that's a problem because there's going to be a massive deficit of oil production because you have the largest with the Saudi Arabia and their oil plants. The largest was Saudi Aramco. That was hit. It's on fire. And to put that into perspective, when Iraq blew up the Kuwaiti oil field, it took years to get that under control, and that's nowhere the size of the oil fields in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia. So that's going to be the most lasting impact of this. Then you will, I don't believe after this is said and done, you will see any more US bases in Gulf states. Because a lot of these states are monarchs, but monarchs can be overturned or overthrown, right? Iran was a monarch. Iraq was a monarch. Jordan almost lost its monarchy, right? Egypt was a monarch. So with the destruction you're seeing in these Gulf states, the people are going to make hard decision and say, okay, do we want to go through this again? Like, can we really trust the US? We see that they have literally flew the coop. You see empty US military bases with all their hardware. They got their soldiers up on helicopters and jets and took off. So if you have all of this equipment and nobody to use it to protect us, why are they there? Why are you? So this is a very, I believe when the Arab League meets again, if they're going to be meeting, there's emergency meetings called, at some point, you're going to start seeing that US's bases are being expelled. I really believe that.
What impact will this have, if any, on the midterm elections coming up in the United States?
Massive. Absolutely massive. One of two things is going to happen. Number one, when the casualty counts start coming in, and they will, and they're going to be high. And the fact that the sentiment of already being shifted on Israel first, it's going to be high, because one thing American loves is their military, the people. So that is going to affect the American midterm drastically. Now, I strongly believe Trump will be impeached for a third time, and I do believe this time he's not going to survive an impeachment, because it's going to come down to the Democrats are going to frame the article that if Trump stays, there's no way Republicans should win the midterms. And the Republicans are going to be like, you know what? It's time to cut loose. Do we want to risk losing the House and the Senate? And I strongly believe this time he will be out of office before the end of the year.
Well, it's interesting that allegedly the main topic on many Americans' minds is affordability, and what this war is going to do to affordability for the average American. And I'm very interested to see how the Republican Party is going to spin this, because their prices are going up. It'll be very interesting to see the spin or the way they're going to try to explain their way through, because the prices are going to go up, and people say, well, did we have to go in and fight this war?
So here's the problem with this situation is, in the U.S., actually, this is by the CIA. So, and I'll give reference and context, and you see where I'm going with it here. So just stay with me. Is the U.S. say that once you are at the age of 25, you're 95% hardened in your opinion, your thoughts, your environments, right? And that's why you see they usually put a cap at that age for military and armed forces and services, right? So the U.S. knows this, right? And they know that this war is going to hurt the American finances, the pocketbooks, even more, compounded with the tariffs, right? But they also know that people are incapable of changing, because this is what they know. So what they're going to do is they're going to go on to their outlets, the Fox News, the Breitbarts, and they're going to just ratchet it up. This war was caused by the Democrats. This wasn't our war. And they're getting all the greatest hits, knowing that out of 100%, 95% of these people are incapable of thinking different, because they've grown up on this type of rhetoric and ideology, and they're going to spoon feed them, and they're going to believe it. That's why you see farmers in the Midwest, in Kansas and Ohio, who have lost all of their farming. Their soybeans are done, corn done, wheat done. They're going bankrupt. And yet, the Trump administration says this is all the faults of the Democrats. This is China's fault. And they say, yeah, you're right. We're still going to vote for you. So it's a really good psychology game that the U.S. government plays, Democrats and Republicans, because they know as long as they're on TV, their people are tuned in, because there's such silos, right? Republicans only tune into Republican news and they get further indoctrinated. Democrats tune into Democratic news and they get indoctrinated. And the cycle goes on.
JG Marr says monarchs are primarily ceremonial, but degrade into full-blown dictatorships.
Yeah, monarchs in the Middle East actually are the actual government. Monarchs in Canada, in Spain, in France, those are more ceremonial. But the monarchs are actually rule the Middle East and the royal families.
So I got two more conversation pieces for you. And again, thanks for making the time to give a deep dive for our audience today. First thing, what would it take to pull back from this brink? Diplomacy, protests inside Iran, pressure on 47 Netanyahu. What would it take?
There's only one thing. Diplomacy will never work. It will never work because it's not being done in good faith. Trump has seen that 2 times. And what a lot of people, what the news is not showing is actually Trump sent the U.S. ambassador and to connect with the Israeli ambassador with the Italian ambassador and the Italian prime minister, asking her to broker an immediate peace deal, asking Iran to stop the bombing. So that was breaking news yesterday, where Trump asked her to broker and Iran says, we are not stopping. We will stop it when we're ready to stop it. Okay. So there's only one thing it will take is when Iran has satisfied that Israel is completely destroyed to the point where they cannot inflict any more damage, when they have sunk at least one U.S. carrier, then they're going to start listening and hearing. But I strongly believe this will be the end to any occupation in Gaza. It will. This is significant because the thing we cannot overlook is they assassinated their religious leader and their head of state. Right? Look what happened in 9/11, what America did. What do you think would happen if Trump was assassinated by another country? America would obliterate that country. There will be nothing left. America would make that country look worse than Gaza. So those are the contexts we need to put this in now. Is you killed the religious leader of hundreds of millions of Muslims. Because the Khomeini is not just the religious leader for Iran, it's for all Muslims and Shiites. So when the media starts putting into severity and the totality of what happened, that's when I believe Americans are going to sit back and say, holy crap, we just killed the equivalent of the Pope. But the problem is the Western media will not put it in those contexts. It's literally, okay, this bad man died, now move along and shut up and put your arms down. Because Trump said, and I'm quoting now, this war would be done and over in 4 days. The Iranian people are going to be calling to me, begging me to choose their leader because I will liberate. Right? This is his train of thought.
Mm-hmm. Hayden says, if Dems turn to Dems and Republicans turn to Republicans for news, where should independents look for unbiased news?
look to us, look to YouTube, look to Twitter is a dumpster fire, but you'll find other outlets on there too. Um, just the best thing I say is if you want the most horrific covering of news, go to BBC, go to CNN, go to MSN, go to any of the major American news outlets. They're terrible. Go, and of course, go to the CBC, right? They're terrible. They're terrible for factual news because they're so slanted, right? Like I said, you know, you look at this the statement Anita Anand put out today. She's the for everybody who may not be aware, she's the foreign affairs minister. And by all means, she's very competent and she's held a lot of high level portfolios and she's 10 times an upgrade from the previous. She puts out that statement that America should, it's unfortunate that Iran is unnecessarily attacking the neighboring Gulfs and they need to stand down. But again, she clearly omitted the fact that all of those countries that in the Gulf states house US bases, those bases are being used to attack Iran, right? And then, of course, the whole Dubai, like I said before, the whole issue with Dubai is an innocent bystander who just happens to have the largest CIA headquarters directing intel. So context, right?
JJ Marr says pretty much initiated a jihad.
Yeah, they made Khomeini a martyr. And that's the highest honor you could have in the Islamic faith, is being a martyr. It's the equivalent of a saint in Catholicism and Christianity. And again, I cannot stress how severe this is. And unfortunately, the Western media is just downplaying it as just another guy who was killed. Turn on any other news that's not Western news and see how this is being felt around the world. Right? This is again, I can't underscore, this is massive what Trump did. This is massive. America will no longer be safe in this world. It's that point where Americans, when they were backpacking, they were buying Canadian flags and sewing it on their backpacks. This is where it's at. Is he just made the world less safer for Americans? Look at all the embassies in America, all the American embassies around the world right now that are set on fire. Right? This is not good. This is not good because a lot of innocent Americans are now in the crosshairs.
So our final conversation piece, when you look at all of this,
Yeah.
what's one thing you want our audience to stay focused on beyond the headlines?
Find factual news, because again, if you look at only news in America, you're siloed. And I find that, and again, it's just like Canadian too, right? You just cover the news that you listen to. But if you go around the world, the vast majority of the world does not think like how the Western media does or covers news from the West. So I always say, just see how, if there's a story, I would go to every news outlet and see how they're covering that story. Right? So if I see something like a jet is shot down, well, I have really good sources through our networks. Then I look at what the BBC says, what MSNBC says, what Fox, CNN, all of these, and I look for the discrepancies. And that's one of the best way I tell people, if you want a true understanding of what is factual, just look at all these outlets and see how they're covering the news. And I know contrary to what you hear in Western news, if you really want factual news about what's going, look at the Chinese news station. Like we're so trained and conditioned to think, but they really actually cover news fairly.
Okay. Well, Donovan, want to say thank you as always for giving the most important thing, your time to hang out with us on your monthly appearance on the first Monday of each month. You can get a hold of Donovan again at dailyscrumnews.com or email at info@thedailyscrumnews.com. What's upcoming on the Daily Scrum News that we need to know about?
Well, we have a lot of great coverage on this subject. We're still, there's a lot of cool AI stuff that we're rolling out. We just wrapped our Black History Month, 30 Days of Black History, which we're trying to roll into 365. So there's always challenges. We're now moved into a month of where we're covering every day somebody significant from the Islamic Muslim community honoring Ramadan. We just have a lot of really great stories coming out. We're very factual. We have no skin in the games of being partisan, and we're just doing really great work.
One more thing. What is your take about the the Ellison's takeover of Warner Brothers?
It's terrible. It's terrible. The Ellis, they've taken over all of the CBS. The Ellis, they bought out TikTok. They are essentially the right arm of the Israeli media now. It's terrible. Like one of the first thing I did was uninstall TikTok. If you see the new terms of agreement in TikTok, should terrify you. Absolutely terrify you if you're on TikTok. And it basically the new terms. There is, I believe, what they said. It's literally a surveillance app now for Israel. There is, I believe he said, there's 15 fact checkers to only flag any content that they believe is detrimental to Israel or anti-Semitic. Now, your name, if you say something, your name goes on a list that gets reported to the police where they can show up at your door and arrest you or detain you. You give them permission to now monitor and surveil all your content and report it back in real time. It's terrible. If you actually read the new terms of agreement from TikTok after it was purchased, you should be absolutely terrified.
So Dr. Tachi says, I actually deleted my TikTok account and I've been on since the beginning.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's like I said, it literally, and I'm being as literal as I can, says we are now have full powers to surveil you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. On that news, fellow, anyone who's on TikTok, and I am on there, but I haven't posted forever.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I want to post on TikTok.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable with that platform these days. All right. So as we wind it down, we'll just do some house cleaning here. As always, subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Please like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I know I may have to take out the TikTok. I'm there, but I don't post there anymore. Blue Sky and Substack. Also, join the Morning Vibe Discord group. Email me at dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com or copy and paste the link you see on the screen or in your comment section. To advertise your business product or service on any of the platforms I'm a part of, email me again, dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. Also, I put this also in your comment section. Help shape the morning vibe. Take our 2-minute audience survey. Your voice matters. So click on that following link. It's in the comment section on most of the platforms you're watching this live or on the replay. Again, coming up on this Friday's show at 9 a.m. Eastern, Perry Douglas will be talking about his recent article at buyblocks.com, Black History Month, the illusion of inclusion. And then Coming up also this Friday at 7 p.m. on the Dr. Vibe Show, Wayne Harris, financial educator on Financial First Fridays, will be talking about spring into your finances 2026 smart money tips. If you want to get a hold of Ryan Oneil Knight, and that's Knight with a KN, not an N.com, and also myself, taplink.cc/the DRVIBESHOW.com. And as you can see, you can watch replays of this show on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, Afro-Caribbean Business Network on YouTube, and Ryan Oneil Knight on YouTube. And I think we've got one more comment. Yes, JG Mar says, most of the internet has an Israeli fingerprint. Interesting. Okay. So we are going to finish off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller, get stronger. Block assumptions, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history. Try to do both and always make it better. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. Walk good and stay safe.